Everyone says the secret to success is self-discipline. Wake up early, work harder, and never quit. But here's the trap. Most people confuse self-discipline with self-punishment. You start chasing it so hard, you forget why you started. You begin to hate the very process that was supposed to build you. And that's exactly why they burn out, lose motivation, and quit again and again. Today, we're breaking down the hidden traps of self-discipline, and more importantly, how to get out of them so you can stay consistent without burning yourself out. But before we begin, take a second to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and keeps you aligned with more videos that improve your mindset. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. Trap number 1, the illusion of discipline. Some people think discipline is simple. Just wake up early, grind harder, and never quit. But that illusion is what keeps you stuck. We look at successful people and assume they're built different, like they never procrastinate or feel tired. But here's what you don't see. That entrepreneur who never stops working, he probably fought off burnout 3 times this year. That coworker who seems laser-focused every day, probably sat in their car for 10 minutes this morning, just trying to convince themselves to walk inside. Discipline doesn't mean you don't struggle. It means you stopped expecting life to feel easy. Real discipline isn't about force. It's about alignment, doing what matters, even when it's inconvenient, without making every mistake feel like a failure. So how do you actually escape this trap? It starts by letting go of the idea that discipline is supposed to feel perfect. Stop comparing yourself to the flawless version of other people. Even the most disciplined struggle, they just keep showing up imperfectly. The key is to shift from force to design. Create routines, environments, and habits that support you instead of drain you. Expect discomfort, not as a sign that you're failing, but as proof that you're growing. When you stop chasing perfection and start building alignment, discipline stops feeling like pressure and becomes something you can actually sustain. Trap number 2, the guilt loop. This one's subtle and deadly. You promise yourself you'll wake up at 5 a.m. You nail it for 3 days. Then on day 4, your alarm rings and your body says no. You hit snooze, wake up late, and instantly feel guilty. So you promise to make up for it tomorrow. But tomorrow comes and you're still tired. Guilt becomes frustration, frustration becomes shame, and suddenly you're questioning yourself again, wondering maybe consistency just isn't for you. That's not discipline. That's perfectionism dressed up as productivity. And here's the thing, that shame doesn't make you better. It just drains your energy and pushes you further away from consistency. And if you've been caught in this cycle, here's your way out. You escape the guilt loop by realizing that consistency isn't about never missing. It's about always returning. Missing a day doesn't mean you failed. Quitting for good does. Instead of punishing yourself, give yourself permission to be human. Rest when you need it, reset when you slip, and return the moment you're able, not the moment you're perfect. When you replace guilt with self-respect and focus on getting back on track, the loop breaks, and consistency becomes something you grow into rather than something you chase. Trap number 3, the all-or-nothing mindset. This one destroys more progress than failure ever will. You either go all in or not at all. You think missing one workout means the whole week's ruined. You break your diet once, and suddenly you're back to square one. That's not discipline, that's fear of imperfection. The truth is, consistency isn't about never missing. It's about never quitting. It's the person who skips the gym on Wednesday, but shows up Thursday without guilt. It's the writer who has a bad day, but still writes a messy paragraph instead of none. True discipline is quiet. It's not about hyping yourself up every morning. It's about designing your life so you don't need hype to stay consistent. You meal prep because it saves mental energy. You keep your phone in a drawer because you know your limits. You rest when your body needs it so you can come back sharper. That's discipline, not punishment, but design. Here's how to escape this trap. You start by dropping the idea that discipline has to look the same every day. Some days you have full energy, some days you don't, and that's normal. Consistency isn't built through perfect days. It's built through honest days. When you stop expecting yourself to operate at 100% all the time, you give yourself room to actually grow. So instead of forcing intensity, give yourself permission to show up in whatever capacity you have. A small step still counts. A light version of the habit still counts. And on the days you slip, don't spiral, adjust, breathe, and show up again tomorrow. Once you stop chasing perfection and start respecting progress, the pressure drops, your confidence rises, and discipline becomes something you can actually sustain. And finally, trap number 4, the comparison trap. You might not even notice this one. You see someone online who's more disciplined. They wake up earlier, run faster, make more money, and suddenly your progress feels small. You start copying their routines, their diets, their habits, and you end up exhausted, uninspired, and detached from your goals. Because discipline without purpose is just obedience. You don't need their path, you need yours. Once you understand that, everything changes. Discipline stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like power. Here's how to escape this trap. You do it by bringing the focus back to your own lane. Because the moment you stop measuring your progress with someone else's ruler, everything inside you settles. Discipline becomes quieter, simpler, more real. Instead of chasing what works for them, you start paying attention to what actually works for you. Your pace, your needs, your goals. And when you stop trying to outrun people who were never even in your race, you finally get the energy back to run your own. That's when your habits start to stick. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because they make sense for the person you're becoming. And once you anchor your discipline to your own growth, comparison loses its power, and you get yours back. We were taught that discipline means saying no to yourself, but honestly, it means saying yes to the right things. It's not about hating comfort, it's about loving growth more. It's not about feeling guilty for slipping, it's about trusting yourself to return. When you see it that way, discipline stops being a cage and starts becoming freedom. Because when you trust yourself to keep showing up, even imperfectly, you become unstoppable. You don't need to be harder on yourself. You need to be honest with yourself. And you don't need to control everything. You just need to stay consistent with what matters. Discipline isn't the enemy. It just needed a new definition. So take a breath, reset, and start again. Not to prove yourself, but to build yourself.